But you left it as that?
Yeah.
Barb, are you getting any of my texts?
I think so.
Well, you sent me a couple, and then I sent you a couple. I think we gotta figure it out. I must be sending it to the wrong one. We'll double check.
Oh, okay.
We'll look at numbers later.
All right.
I think I have both of yours saved in mine, and I don't know which one. I don't think I
No, that
know
wasn't
which
it.
one was it.
Did you change it again? Because
No.
there was a really goofy one to start. Good morning. There was a really goofy one to start.
Yes.
And then we changed it. And then we changed it to that. No?
Give me another.
Oh, here, we're gonna change this. These are- Let's just try this. It's just nice. Because I went back in my emails and this is the last one I have. But let me see. But maybe he told me over the phone.
It wasn't that, that's for sure.
Can you pull it up, please? Okay, Mayor,
I'll just wait, Councillor Moncrief to see incoming.
Oh, she's coming?
We can hold off for a minute.
The report?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's in our email.
The live stream is going now, so just FYI.
Top of the morning?
The agenda? Sure, I can grab it. I should have warned everybody, so.
Yeah, she just, record one.
Good morning. Call this meeting to order. Item number 2, blessing and land acknowledgement. Councillor Burnett, if council could stand.
As we gather, we recognize that we are on Treaty 3 lands, which are steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations and Métis people today. We continue to be thankful for the partnerships with Indigenous people. We give thanks for the many blessings we enjoy in the city of Kenora. We seek wisdom in our minds, clearness in our thinking, truth in our speaking, and always love in our hearts, so that we may try always to unite the citizens of Kenora. Let these principles guide us in our decision making.
Thank you. Moving on, item number 3, public information notices. As required under notice bylaw 144-2007, the public is advised of council's intention to adopt the following at today's meeting. Item number 4, declaration of pecuniary interest. Any member of council has any declarations of pecuniary interest in the nature thereof pertaining to any items as follows on today's agenda or from a previous meeting, from a meeting at which a member was not in attendance. Seeing none. Item number 5, presentations, deputations. We don't have any today. Item number 6, special items, Coney Island Footbridge replacement project. And am I going to hand that over to you or to?
Yeah, I'll take it, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so for the sake of continuity, I'll deliver the report, but this has been a real team effort over the past few months to get this project where it is today, so everybody's here able to answer questions as we go. So thanks everybody for the flexibility to be here to address this important topic. I want to start off just by saying, it's really important that we understand, even though the waters have receded and even though it's November, like this is still part of the active emergency we've been dealing with as a result of the floods over the summer. And in keeping with the processes established by the city's Emergency Operations Control Group, framework was established for decision making. And so where possible, we've brought some operational decisions back to council with an array of options for them to decide what the best path forward is. So we've done that with Coker Road, with a grade raise after the waters receded there. And we've also done that on Pinecone where we had a grade failure there. So just to give you some context for why we're having the conversation. So the Coney Island Footbridge, and I'm going to refer to it as a footbridge throughout, for any of you that aren't familiar or for none of you have seen the new version. Basically what that is it's a floating walkway. It's a dock system that sits on top of the water. Connects mainland Kenora to Coney Island. We put it in November. It's about 300 feet long. We've been providing this level of service to Coney Island since the 1960s, roughly, we've been told. At some point, somebody put this bridge together and we ended up with it, and we've just continued to deliver that until the bridge was damaged in the floods last May. Usually we take it out in April or May with the high waters last year. On May 9th, it was struck by a piece of ice, irreparably damaged. That footbridge, in addition to other assets, have been put into our insurer through the claims process, in addition to the province of Ontario through the disaster relief program. So we're trying to get some money back for that damaged item. In July 2022, Stantec Engineering took a look at the old bridge and they were able to tell us the bridge is not salvageable. Okay, so that then triggered a different decision point, which we brought to council on August 9th, and we received a budget amendment in the amount of $225,000 to construct a new footbridge to continue to provide that level of service to Coney Island. We recognize it's an important level of service for that community. We went through a procurement process. We hired Docks and Lifts. We used Stantec, which is a firm that we have contracted to provide us with engineering support throughout the year on special items such as this. So the reason that we're here today, so the budget amendment that we received in August was get the footbridge together. And, we were, until very recently, we were communicating to council that we were going to meet our historical timeline, which is about this week, okay? At the time of this writing, that's sitting here today, the new footbridge is incomplete. The main floating platform, the aluminum ramps, and the steel cables, it's going to be a bit of a different look, so there's some steel cable elements. They're ready for installation, but the permanent railings that we require to install the bridge, as a result of, I'm not exactly sure all the factors, but they're not here ready to go. So we currently anticipate that the permanent railings will arrive in December or January, but as I know you're sure, you guys would probably understand right now with supply chain, it's really hard to predict certain things and when they'll arrive. I cannot underscore how important the railings are. We don't want to have just a floating dock sitting there with open sides for a number of reasons. We've got people, using that bridge for passage. We've got city staff on there that are snow clearing and removing. So from our perspective as administration, installation without approved railings is just too significant of a risk. So we found that out very recently. Okay. Administration has worked very hard, and these individuals at the back have worked exceedingly hard to try and put us in a position where we can put these options in front of you today. So through a consultation with Stantec, Docks and Lifts, and our city insurer, we've identified a temporary option to support the installation of the footbridge starting this week. So as soon as we can get through this meeting, depending on your direction, we'll be able to move on any of these three options for you. The temporary measure would result in the installation of temporary railings to the footbridge, and we would rent those railings, and that would allow us to provide a factor of safety that is sufficient for people to use that bridge for passage. And of course, right now, what we're really up against as well is the freeze up. And so the bridge right now, again, what we've tried to do is make sure we can deliver on any of these three options for you. So the bridge is floating in the lake right now, but as you know, it starts to freeze up close to the shore, and so we're battling that. And typically what we would do with the old footbridge is it would float in place by Coney Island, Bush Island, and it would stay there in the summer. So and we would let it freeze in and then thaw and put it over there in the summertime. So that's consistent with past practice. So to get down to brass tacks, we've got three options for you today, and it's really just about making you aware of what the risks are, and there's a level of service conversation here to Coney Island that we think it's important for council to weigh in on. So the first option, depending on how council feels, is to not install the footbridge this year. As I said, we don't have all the elements. This option would leave the residents on Coney Island with no passage during the spring and thaw, until the ice road is in and once the boat traffic is no longer able to pass. Evacuation potentially of permanent residents may be necessary as they'll have limited ability to access their property. That's a full reduction in level of service, so that's pretty significant. The second option that we have in front of you today is to delay the opening of the footbridge until the permanent railings arrive. We could get the bridge more or less into location. We could tip the ramps up to keep it closed. Once the permanent railings get here, we would install the permanent railings, and then we would be able to open the bridge. But again, that's contingent on the bridge, on the railings arriving December, January, and we don't have 100% clarity on when they'll arrive. Again, evacuation might still be on the table there. It's important that we communicate to residents. And that option, provided that the permanent railings arrive, would reduce service until we're able to get those permanent railings on. So the third option that we have in front of you, and again, I want to thank the work of senior leadership team and the emergency control group to have gotten us to a point where we can put this option in front of you, because there has been time over the past couple weeks where this option was, we needed to get some things done to get here. So we can get temporary construction railings from a local supplier, and we can secure them to the platform today. Docks and Lifts Unlimited is available to perform the installation and to attach the railings in accordance with Stantec's approved guidelines, and that was very important to us, that we were able to get engineering sign-off that they felt good about the factor of safety that would be provided with this temporary solution. Once installed, the bridge will be open for safe passage of residents and will be covered under our liability insurance, so that's important. The rental of temporary railings can be accommodated within the existing project budget, and this option is the one that allows us to maintain our level of service and meet our historical timeline. Again, from a budget perspective, we can keep this in budget. We have, gotten the numbers as recently as yesterday. We feel good about that. I do want to talk a little bit about some of the risks here, that we've taken into, that we've factored in as we've considered these options for you. The high risk of having contractors and or city employees, and really at this point it's our preference that the contractors carry out this work, so that's how we've approached this. Working over freezing temperatures, trying to get railings on, getting this to float in place and attach the cables, that's been a concern. Obviously, we recognize that there's high political risk, for upsetting and reducing the level of service to the residents of Coney Island. We understand that this is a very important piece of infrastructure to those residents, and we know that's a significant factor in consideration here. We know there's a high risk to any residents, should we not be able to provide continuity of level of service, that they might have to find temporary housing or find somewhere on the mainland to live temporarily. And we understand that's a concern. I've mentioned the high risk of the lake freezing. There are some concerns around the insurance market. It's a hard market right now. So what that means is, when you start to see these claims, or when you start to have that experience rating, you start to see your rates go up, and the rates are already going up because there's claims everywhere, particularly in northwestern Ontario, where, just about every municipality has incurred pretty significant flooding in spring, summer 2022. And at this point, we feel there's a low financial risk with regards to budget. We have a very good quote and estimate that we've received from a rental company to get temporary railing should council wish to pursue that option. So from a financial perspective, low risk, but we're doing our best to make sure that we come in on that number that council gave to us in August. So with that said, we're here and available to answer any questions that you might have regarding the project. Thanks for your patience. I know some of that was a little bit, was covered in the report, but I think it's important just that we refresh everybody's mind.
Great, thank you, Kyle. So we'll move to council for questions. Kelsey.
Can everyone hear me okay? Is there a date, because you said that there's not a guaranteed date as to when the permanent railings will arrive. Is there a date that the rental fee would fall outside of our budget?
At this point, we don't believe so. I will throw it to Stace. Like Stace, let's say worst case scenario, we had to keep the temporary railings on all year. We believe we can accommodate.
We would find a way to pay for it within our operating budget. The rental rate is not excessive. It's $700 a month, so we're not talking about a real material cost, so we could be absorbed quite easily.
And, sorry, can I ask another one?
Follow up.
If being that they're temporary railings, would they be safe to make it through the whole season if that was something that needed to be done? I'm sure not.
So what it is it's construction fencing that you might typically see around a construction. So it's quite high actually, and it will be fastened to the footbridge itself. So I don't know if you have anything to add, Stace.
No, it's designed and built for all weather applications, so we're not concerned about that at all.
I'll follow up to Councillor Van Bellingham. Is it the ones with the feet? Are we worried about tripping hazards with the feet on the bridge?
The way it's structured, there are feet structures to it, but they're not feet that go like this. They're flat.
Okay.
Okay, so we're talking about, I don't know how thick the metal flange is, but probably like about a quarter inch.
Oh, yeah, okay. I was thinking that with the ones that sometimes fit cords underneath and things like that.
Like this,
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then secondly, why is this coming here? I don't understand why this is coming to council when it feels like just the work needs to be done, so do it.
Sure, I certainly understand that perspective. From like, I've received very clear feedback, and the way I've come up in the business is no surprises, okay? If we put a temporary railing up and people are looking and saying, oh, that doesn't look finished, you know, I don't want you to be getting calls from residents with concerns, you know, or for you to see that yourself and be concerned about what you're seeing. So it's really coming from a place of no surprises. As I set off the meeting, it's about, we're trying to keep with our emergency management practices and, you know, what we've used in the past. And there's some risk here for council as well. There's some political stuff. So we think it's very important that we stay consistent, and we think it's important that council understands what's going on. You know, the calendar here with the transition to the new council as well was a bit sticky. You know, we've had about 12 or 13 days since we realized this issue with the temporary versus permanent railings, and it would have been nice to maybe, you know, if it was just that simple to send an email, but from our perspective, we were working literally to Monday to put these options in front of you. So we felt that a council meeting was the best forum to do that. I certainly understand the perspective though, and it's not our intention to repeatedly bring operational decisions here, but I think this is beyond a simple operational decision from my perspective based on the factors that I've outlined in the report.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Councillor.
How many residents use the bridge?
So we believe that there's about 6, 7 permanent residences, you know, so I don't know exactly how many residents, but there's about 6 or 7 permanent residences that stay there during the winter based on our estimates. And I don't know if anybody from administration wants to add on to that, but.
I'll just add that there's a lot of people that would go and check on their camps on a regular basis. Maybe they just go out there on the weekends or that sort of thing. And then from an insurance perspective, they would be checking on them on a regular basis. We did buy some trail counters. So I think what we'll do is we'll put a counter on there so that we get a good feel for what kind of volume we're getting across the bridge.
Have we ever thought of charging a toll as a
We have-
yearly expense?
How do I answer that? Not since I've been here. I would refer to my team if that's ever been considered prior to my arrival. I don't believe so, no. I'm seeing head shakes. And sorry, I wanted to open up, just Councillor Koch's question, I wanted to open up to my team if anybody wanted to provide any perspective on how we've approached this report.
I think it is about a level of service. So there is a direct service impact here. And of course, in any situation when you have options where one option just sees something keeping it closed, that needs to come in terms of that conversation. And that was our big debate, you know, what are all the operational angles that we can do to ensure that we're continuing on that level of service, as Pat had said.
Sure, and if I could just offer a little bit of context behind my question. Probably everybody received some phone calls about this, and so the perception was shared that if this were a different subdivision of Kenora, this would just be work that got done and not just not come to this decision-making table in the way that it has, and work would have just moved forward. And so that was the prompt for my question.
Well, I don't know if anywhere else in Kenora requires a footbridge for your
Well, of course.
So I understand,
Yes.
you know, I understand.
Bypass.
You know, but yeah, like I personally don't see it as being that simple. It's really about the level of service, and it's really about making sure that council understands what we're delivering. And like, to flip that back, as the CAO, I experienced situations where we do things to get things done, and then we receive complaints based on how we've done that, right? And so because this is such an important issue, and because it's such an important key piece of infrastructure, and because of the implications from the flood, again, I really feel that this is the best forum to manage this in. And we just couldn't afford to wait any longer to move forward. And like I said, there's the bridge is not going to look exactly right with the temporary solutions. And we were given very specific direction from council. And because of this late curveball, we were not able, what we've been telling council consistently is we're going to hit our installation timeline, and now all of a sudden we're not. And I thought more than an email or more than a phone call was required in this case, and I thought it's important that the public hears it as well.
Thank you.
For myself, I'd rather have more information than less, so I prefer to know. And I just want to make the comment that I think we would be remiss if we didn't thank the staff for their efforts. I did hear from people who were residents. I also heard from people who use the Coney Island like a trail in the winter, and they go out there, they walk. It's part of their routine every single day. And so it's not a measurement necessarily of how many residences or residents, but it's more a measurement of part of our critical infrastructure. So thank you to the staff, and also I think publicly we should say thank you to Stantec and to Docs Unlimited for working their hardest at this to get this working for these people.
Any other questions of council? I guess I'd call for resolution number 1.
Yeah, just so I'm clear, understanding the direction of council, that you're providing direction to administration to install the Coney Island footbridge structure with temporary railings immediately. That's the direction.
Happy to
3.
move.
Okay, so whoever wants to move it.
I'll move.
So we'll call the question.
Pardon me?
Yeah,
The
so
resolution.
So Councillor Moncrief, the staff.
I'd like to move. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'd like to move, seconded by Greg Chase, that council hereby provides direction to administration to install the new Coney Island footbridge structure with temporary construction railings immediately.
Okay, I'm assuming there's no discussion, so call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Yay.
I just want to give you copies.
Okay, resolution number 2?
Before that,
Okay.
communication about what we've just discussed.
It's
Heather's
ready.
gonna look after that.
It's ready.
Ready to go.
Okay.
And we will trigger the other side. Right now.
It's true.
It's
We hadn't even voted yet.
They sure will.
Get it going.
Yeah.
Get it going.
Okay.
Okay.
So resolution.
Resolution number 2.
Resolution number 2, your worship, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Koch, that this meeting be now declared closed at 8:52
All those in favor?
a.m.
Adjourned.
Thank you.
Heather, let me know when we're